This is the fourth day of this April 2024 7-day session, and I'm going to read today from a book edited by Jack Kornfield called Living Dharma. Subtitle is Teachings and Meditation Instructions from 12 Theravada Masters. And the master we'll be reading from is a friend of ours, Ajahn Chah. The introduction to this section has a little bit about Ajahn Chah, and let me read it. He was born into a large and comfortable family in a rural village in the Lao area of northeast Thailand. He ordained as a novice in early youth, and on reaching the age of 20, took higher ordination as a bhikkhu. Bhikkhu is a monk. Beyond the fourth grade education standard in the village schools, he studied some basic Dharma and scriptures as a young monk. Later, he practiced meditation under the guidance of several of the local forest teachers in the Lao-speaking ascetic tradition. He walked for a number of years in the style of an ascetic monk, sleeping under the forest trees and spending a short but enlightening period with Ajahn Mun, one of the most famous and powerful Thai Lao meditation masters of this century. This book, although it was published, the copy I have in, I think, 2010, was originally published and therefore must have been written in or about 1977. So this is when Ajahn Chah was still alive. After many years of travel and practice, he returned to settle in a thick forest grove near the village of his birth. This grove was uninhabited, known as a place of cobras, tigers, and ghosts, and as he said, the perfect location for a forest monk. Around Ajahn Chah, a large monastery formed as more and more monks, nuns, and lay people came to hear his teaching and stay on with him. Now, this would be in 77, I guess, there are disciples teaching in more than 30 mountain and forest branch temples throughout northeast Thailand. On entering Wat Ba Pong, it's the name of his place. I think Wat is the Thai word for temple. On entering, one is apt first to encounter monks drawing water from a well and a sign on the path that says, "You there, be quiet, we're trying to meditate." Although there is group meditation and chanting twice a day and usually an evening talk by Ajahn Chah, the heart of the meditation is the way of life. Monks work sewing robes and sweeping the forest paths and live extremely simply. Monks here follow the ascetic precepts, limiting meals to one a day and limiting their number of possessions, robes, and living places. A lot of this goes right back to the time of the Buddha, when the Vinaya was developed, the rules for monks. They live in individual cottages spread throughout the forest and practice their walking meditation on cleared paths under the trees. Many of his Western disciples now choose to live at a huge new forest preserve monastery with scattered cottages built into caves in the hillside. Perhaps that gets you away from the tigers and the cobras. The simple regimen of the forest monastery provides the setting for the development of wisdom. Ajahn Chah stresses that each person has his natural pace, and that we should not worry about the length of our path or destination. Simply stick to the present moment, he advises, and eventually the mind will reach its natural balance where practice is automatic. Stick to the present moment. Don't reject it. Don't look past it for something more. He must have been comparing notes with Sheng Yen. He rarely speaks of attaining any special state of mind or states of concentration and enlightenment. Instead, when questioned on this topic, he will ask the questioner if he has fully let go of all attachment and is totally free from suffering. With the usual reply of, "Not yet," he will direct him to simply continue his practice of watching the mind and not clinging even to deep insights or enlightenment experiences. Only continue this not clinging from moment to moment. Just keep going. Just faith in the practice. Really doing the practice. Bringing the mind back. Taming the ox. Daily life in the monastery becomes as much the focus of practice as the formal sitting and walking. Washing robes, cleaning spittoons, sweeping the hall, collecting morning alms are all meditation. And as Ajahn Chah reminds us, in cleaning a toilet, don't feel you are doing it as a favor for anyone else. There is Dharma there too. Meditation means mindfulness, or we could say awareness, in whatever we do. Sometimes the lifestyle seems strict and harsh, and the struggle to find comfort and security becomes a great lesson in the meditation. This is quoting Ajahn Chah. When you get angry or feel sorry for yourself, it is a great opportunity to understand the mind. It's the same for us here in Sesshin. People sometimes wonder, why did I sign up for this? Sometimes that can be a panic-inducing thought. Think, oh no, with thoughts like that, obviously I'm not going to get anywhere. Be surprised how common those are. Certainly I had my share. And I still have moments when it's that, oh shit. Things aren't always the way we want them to be. That's a lesson there. This is actually life. For constantly thinking, is this good enough? Am I good enough? How are other people doing? We're not doing the practice. This is all we have to do. He goes on. This, by the way, this introduction was written by Jack Cornfield. In surrendering to the rules that create a harmonious community, we see clearly how desires and images we hold conflict with this flow. The strict discipline helps us cut away at the ego needs for outward display of individuality. Ajahn Chah does not emphasize any special meditation techniques, nor does he encourage crash courses to attain quick insights and enlightenment. In formal sitting, one may watch the breath until the mind is still, and then continue practice by observing the flow of the mind-body process. So this is their practice, different from some of the practices we do in Zen, but very similar. Working on a koan, of course, your goal is to see into it, you could say to have some insight, there's nothing wrong with it being quick. But it's not something to hold on to. It's not anything that you can package up and take with you. It says, live simply, be natural, and watch the mind are the keys to his practice. Patience is stressed. As a new monk at his monastery, I became frustrated by the difficulties of practice and the seeming arbitrary rules of conduct I had to follow. I began to criticize other monks for sloppy practice and doubt the wisdom of Ajahn Chah's teaching. At one point, I went to him and complained, noting that even he was inconsistent and seemed to be contradicting himself often in an unenlightened way. Okay, Jack. He laughed and pointed out how much I was suffering by trying to judge the others around me. Then he explained that in fact his teaching was just a balance. It is as though I see people walking down a road I know well. I look up and see someone about to fall in a ditch on the right-hand side of the road or get off on a side track on the right, so I call out to him, "Go left, go left." Similarly, if I see someone about to go off on the side track to the left or to fall off the left hand into the left-hand ditch, I call out, "Go right, go right." All of practice is simply developing a balance of mind, not clinging, unselfishness. Not clinging, but unselfishness. Sitting in meditation or working at our daily activities are all part of practice, and watching patiently allows the unfolding of wisdom and peace in a natural way. This is Ajahn Chah's path. Ajahn Chah welcomes Westerners, and more than 24 have lived and studied with him, often for many months or years. Wisdom is a way of living and being, and Ajahn Chah has preserved the special, simple lifestyle of the monks as organized by the Buddha for learning Dharma today. And this is followed now by notes from a session of questions and answers. So these are questions, we don't know from whom, probably the monks practicing or laymen practicing with Ajahn Chah, and then his answer. So the first one, I'm trying very hard in my practice, but I don't seem to be getting anywhere. Answer, this is very important. Don't try to get anywhere. Don't try to get anywhere in the practice. The very desire to be free or to be enlightened will be the desire that prevents your freedom. You can try as hard as you wish, practice ardently day and night, but if it is still with the desire to achieve in mind, you will never find peace. The energy from this desire will be cause for doubt and restlessness. No matter how long or hard you practice, wisdom will not arise from desire. So simply let go. Watch the mind. Watch the mind and body mindfully, but don't try to achieve anything. Don't cling even to the practice or to enlightenment. Say, just give yourself completely to the practice for its own sake. Who are we to make demands? So much of spiritual practice is surrender and willingness. When in the back of the mind there's a transaction, I'll do that, but then I want to get this, then it doesn't work. We wonder. So let the mind empty of thoughts, empty of grasping, clinging, aversion. The next questioner asks, what about sleep? How much should I sleep? And Ajahn Chah says, don't ask me, I can't tell you. A good average for some is 4 hours a night. What is important, though, is that you watch and know yourself. If you try to go with too little sleep, the body will feel uncomfortable and awareness will be difficult to sustain. Too much sleep leads to a dull or restless mind. Find the natural balance for yourself. It's interesting what he says. Too much sleep leads to a dull or restless mind. A lot of people err to this side, sleep more than they need to because they're afraid. I'll be exhausted. I won't be able to concentrate. And it's true. If you don't get enough sleep, it's going to be an obstacle. But in Sesshin, we need less sleep than we do in our normal lives. And so you have to experiment. You have to be willing to experiment. Maybe take a little risk. Sit up later than you're used to. See if it's a problem or not. Learn by trying. Other people have a rigid routine that includes very little sleep, and sometimes they're just dragged out. If you do get too tired, there's always at some point a rest period where you can refuel. And as Sesshin goes on, and as the mind settles and thoughts are no longer bombarding us, we have more energy. Our sleep needs change. Ajahn Chah says, find the natural balance for yourself. Carefully watch the mind and body and keep track of sleep needs until you find the optimum. If you wake up and then roll over for a snooze, this is defilement. Establish mindfulness as soon as you open your eyes. How many people, when they wake up, immediately plunge into the thought stream? If we're not careful, if we don't make that effort, that's what happens. Right as you wake, find the practice. Questioner asks, how about eating? How much should I eat? And Ajahn Chah says, eating is the same as sleeping. You must know yourself. Food must be consumed to meet bodily needs. Look at your food as medicine. Are you eating so much that you only feel sleepy after the meal? And are you getting fatter every day? Stop. Examine your own mind and body. There's no need to fast. Instead, experiment with the amount of food you take. Find the natural balance for your body. Put all your food together in your bowl, following the ascetic practice. So this is something interesting that they do. It's like if we took everything that was served at dinner, including, I guess, the salad, and mixed it all up in a bowl and then ate it. It is kind of an ascetic practice, not something that we do. He said, but the advantage, he says, then you can easily judge the amount you take. Watch yourself carefully as you eat. Know yourself. The essence of our practice is just this. There's nothing special you must do. Only watch. Examine yourself. Watch the mind. Then you will know what the natural balance is for your practice. Are the minds of Asians and Westerners different? And he says, basically there is no difference. Outer customs and language may appear different, but the human mind has natural characteristics that are the same for all people. Greed and hatred are the same in an Eastern mind or a Western mind. Suffering and the cessation of suffering are the same for all people. Is it advisable to read a lot or study the scriptures as part of practice? The Dharma of the Buddha is not found in books. If you want to really see for yourself what the Buddha was talking about, you don't need to bother with books. Watch your own mind. Examine to see how feelings come and go, how thoughts come and go. Don't be attached to anything. Just be mindful of whatever there is to see. This is the way to the truths of the Buddha. Be natural. Everything you do in your life here is a chance to practice. If you are emptying a spittoon or cleaning a toilet, don't feel you are doing it as a favor for anyone else. There is Dharma in emptying spittoons. Don't feel you are practicing only when sitting still, cross-legged. Some of you have complained that there's not enough time to meditate. Is there enough time to breathe? This is your meditation, mindfulness, naturalness in whatever you do. Awareness in the moment. And the questioner asks, why don't we have daily interviews with the teacher? He says, if you have questions, you're welcome to come and ask them any time. But we don't need daily interviews here. If I answer your every little question, you will never understand the process of doubt in your own mind. It is essential that you learn to examine yourself, to interview yourself. Listen carefully to the lectures every few days, then use this teaching to compare with your own practice. Is it the same? Is it different? Why do you have doubts? Who is it that doubts? Only through self-examination can you understand. So this is different than what we do. You have the opportunity to come to Doksan if you wish, or to continue sitting. It's up to the student. One way or another, it's good to have some contact with the teacher, with others. The schedule of sesshin is somewhat more intense in terms of sitting than it sounds like what's done in his monastery, although I'm sure there are people there sitting a tremendous amount. But as he says, you're welcome to come and ask any time. The question, what can I do about doubts? Some days I'm plagued with doubts about the practice or my own progress or the teacher. And he says, doubting is natural. Everyone starts out with doubts. You can learn a great deal from them. What is important is that you don't identify with your doubts. That is, don't get caught up in them. This will spin your mind in endless circles. Instead, watch the whole process of doubting and wondering. See who it is that doubts. See how doubts come and go. Then you will no longer be victimized by your doubts. You will step outside of them and your mind will be quiet. You can see how all things come and go. Just let go of what you are attached to. Let go of your doubts and simply watch. This is how to end doubting. We all have a tendency to make the same mistakes over and over and over again. It does help to step back and observe what's happening. If we're so wrapped up in wanting things to be a certain way, all we get out of a tough patch is that, oh no, please end, please end. There's room for a little reflection. Take a breath. Questioner says, what about other methods of practice? These days there seem to be so many teachers and so many different systems of meditation that it's confusing. And he says, it is like going into town. One can approach from the north, from the southeast, from many roads. Often these systems just differ outwardly. Whether you walk one way or another, fast or slow, if you're mindful, it is all the same. There is one essential point that all good practice must eventually come to. That is not clinging. In the end, all meditation systems must be let go of. Also, one cannot cling to the teacher. If a system leads to relinquishment, to not clinging, then it is correct practice. You may wish to travel, to visit other teachers and try other systems. Some of you have done so already. This is a natural desire. You will find out that 1,000 questions asked and knowledge of many systems will not bring you to the truth. Eventually you will get bored. You will see that only by stopping and examining your own mind can you find out what the Buddha talked about. No need to go searching outside yourself. Eventually you must return to face your own true nature. Here is where you can understand the Dharma. We do get easily bored. We want something new. New shiny trinket. Boredom is just another condition. And often it can actually be a fruitful one if we sit with it. See what's there. People will abandon their koan when it seems dull. Go off into thoughts. This is a mistake. If we're not tied up by the desire for things to be different, we can look into it. We can be with it. Even the boredom itself becomes interesting. There's a theater director, Andre Gregory. He's one of the two main characters in the movie My Dinner with Andre, if anybody has seen that. Interesting guy, does experimental theater. Sometimes we'll rehearse the same play for a year, doing the same script again and again and again. So he has something to say about boredom. He says, "For me, boredom suggests that there's a shark swimming under the water that wants to come to the surface, and that you're resisting that big shark because you don't know what it is and you're scared of the unknown. But boring can be very, very interesting if you just have the courage to hang in there." Questioner says, "A lot of times it seems that many monks here are not practicing. They look sloppy or unmindful. This disturbs me. It is not proper to watch other people. This will not help your practice. If you are annoyed, watch the annoyance in your own mind. If others' discipline is bad or they are not good monks, this is not for you to judge. You will not discover wisdom watching others. Monks' discipline is a tool to use for your own meditation. It is not a weapon to use to criticize or find fault. No one can do your practice for you, nor can you do practice for anyone else. Just be mindful of your own doings. This is the way to practice. Clean your own side of the street. Especially when one is beginning in practice. We look around, see things that don't seem right, and off we go. There's no need. Don't look at the other guy. Look at yourself. Questioner says, I have been extremely careful to practice sense restraint. I always keep my eyes lowered and am mindful of every little action I do. When eating, for example, I take a long time and try to see each touch, chewing, tasting, swallowing, etc. I take each step very deliberately and carefully. Am I practicing properly? And Ajahn Chah, this is something that evidently they do. And Ajahn Chah says, sense restraint is proper practice. We should be mindful of it throughout the day, but don't overdo it. Walk and eat and act naturally, and then develop natural mindfulness of what is going on with yourself. Don't force your meditation or force yourself into awkward patterns. This is another form of craving. Be patient. Patience and endurance are necessary. If you act naturally and are mindful, wisdom will come naturally too. There are many different ways in Zen practice of doing kinhin. Some centers where the kinhin is very, very slow. Each step is only a foot length long in one breath. And then there are others, mostly Rinzai centers, where the kinhin is extremely fast. It's hard not to break into a run if you want to keep up. I'm have a real preference for the way we do kinhin here. It's a natural pace. We just walk naturally. When you go around a corner, you go around naturally. There are some centers where you make a right angle. You walk straight and then you pivot and walk in the new direction. And these are ways of keeping the mind concentrated. It's not that there's no reason for them, but there's something to be said for just being natural. You can practice and no one can know that you're practicing. Don't have to stand out in any special way. When I was new to practice, I used to wish that people could see how I was practicing. Before I ever met Roshi Kapleau, I stood in a crowd at the bus stop downtown in Rochester to go out to where his place was at the time, farther down East Avenue than it is now. And I was counting my breaths, which I had learned by reading the 3 Pillars of Zen. And I just thought, boy, if people could see what I'm doing. I was so special. Question. Is it necessary to sit for very long stretches? He says, no. Sitting for hours on end is not necessary. Some people think that the longer you can sit, the wiser you must be. I've seen chickens sit on their nests for days on end. Wisdom comes from being mindful in all postures. Your practice should begin as soon as you awaken in the morning. It should continue until you fall asleep. Don't be concerned about how long you can sit. What is important is only that you keep watchful whether you are working or sitting or going to the bathroom. We understand this. What's important is awareness. Practice can be carried throughout the day. We need to do it, though. We need to develop the habit. We need to get out of the habit of getting up from the mat, going off to meals or wherever, and just letting the mind run riot. If we can learn to stay aware, everything will progress naturally. Its own pace. We'll find ourselves making progress somehow. Ajahn Chah says each person has his own natural pace. Some of you will die at age 50, some at age 65, and some at age 90. So too, your practices will not be identical. Don't think or worry about this. Try to be mindful and let things take their natural course. Then your mind will become quieter and quieter in any surroundings. It will become still like a clear forest pool. Then all kinds of wonderful and rare animals will come to drink at the pool. You will see clearly the nature of all things in the world. You'll see many wonderful and strange things come and go. But you will be still. Problems will arise, and you will see through them immediately. This is the happiness of the Buddha. just to be still. Body still, mind still. Awake. Questioner asks, I still have many thoughts. My mind wanders a lot even though I am trying to be mindful. And he says, don't worry about this. Try to keep your mind in the present. Whatever there is that arises in the mind, just watch it. Let go of it. Don't even wish to be rid of thoughts. Then the mind will reach its natural state. No discriminating between good and bad, hot and cold, fast and slow. No me and no you. No self at all. Just what there is. When you walk on alms rounds, that is going around and begging for food, no need to do anything special. Simply walk and see what there is. No need to cling to isolation or seclusion. Wherever you are, know yourself by being natural and watching. If doubts arise, watch them come and go. It is very simple. Hold on to nothing. It is as though you are walking down a road. Periodically you will run into obstacles. When you meet defilements, just see them and overcome them by letting them go. Don't think about the obstacles you have passed already. Don't worry about those you haven't seen yet. Stick to the present. Don't be concerned about the length of the road or about the destination. Everything is changing. Whatever you pass, don't cling to it. Eventually, the mind will reach its natural balance where practice is automatic. All things will come and go of themselves. We become stable. Joko Beck says we become a bigger container. It's more that we can handle. It's balance and equanimity. Empty mind is always ready to respond, not trapped in patterns, not caught up in regrets. Questioner asks, have you ever looked at the Altar Sutra of the sixth patriarch Huineng? And he says, Huineng's wisdom is very keen. It is a very profound teaching, not easy for beginners to understand. But if you practice with our discipline and with patience, if you practice not clinging, you will eventually understand. Once I had a disciple who stayed in a grass-roofed hut. It rained often that rainy season, and one day a strong wind blew off half the roof. He did not bother to fix it, just let it rain in. Several days passed, and I asked him about his hut. He said he was practicing not clinging. This is not clinging without wisdom. It is about the same as the equanimity of a water buffalo. If you live a good life and live simply, if you are patient and unselfish, you will understand the wisdom of Huineng. Okay, I think we've come to a good place to stop. And we'll now recite the four vows.